And I think the reason is because Jesus wants to set you free. When we learn how to forgive, we remove a burden off our own back. Even if the other person, the person who had the offense against you, doesn't acknowledge it, accept it, whatever it may be, you get set free. You're healed in that process. You can receive the grace that Jesus is offering you. It's his gift, a free gift to you. But if you're holding on to your own pain, you're robbing yourself of that free gift.
Hello and welcome to another podcast with Chuck Scott. And I'm Dr. Doug Howe, and we are delighted to be sharing fellowship, sharing stories of those who've had an experience with our book, Living the Lord's Prayer, with our mission to introduce, reintroduce, and certainly inspire people, but to be closer to the Lord of the Lord's Prayer. And one of the things that we've really received a lot of feedback on, Chuck, is the power of forgiveness. And our Thoughts on the Rocks event next week in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and later in Los Angeles and some others around the country, we're focusing on forgiveness and grace. The prayer says, Lord, forgive us our sins or our trespasses or our debts as we forgive those who've sinned against us. And Chuck and I have worked very hard in our programs and in our ministries. Chuck and Young Life, certainly Insignia Ministries, the organization that I run. You know, we work so hard to be not political, but there's just a cultural news story that is Charlie Kirk and his passing that lots of people seem to want to talk about. I was having dinner this week with Larry Elder, who has a fairly wide audience in Southern California. He was a candidate for governor, and he's going to have me on his show. And I was so excited to talk about Insignia, talk about the book. And then he says, I'm sure you'll have a lot to say about Charlie Kirk. And of course, I'm honored to be asked to do his show. And, but I didn't really necessarily want to go talk about that topic. But just this morning, something happened. We're tying together the theme of forgiveness. And in the Lord's Prayer, it says, forgive us as we forgive others. And that's a pretty strong word there. And it's powerful. We've gotten a lot of feedback from those who said, yes, like you, Doug, like you, Chuck, I know I want to ask forgiveness from the Lord. I need his grace. I need his forgiveness. But it is hard. If you only knew what someone did to someone I love, or if you only knew what someone did to me, you'd understand why you just can't forgive that, or it's hard to forgive that. And so thank you for all those who've shared testimony of how you have gotten free from that and you have realized the power of forgiveness. But a story was announced just this morning. You want to share that?
Yeah, as I would say, probably one of the most talked about response I get from people is the forgiveness. And when I spoke this weekend at a family camp, so there's 400 people sitting in a room, and we've gotten to this part of the prayer, forgive us, and we're reminded of what that cost for Jesus to forgive us. It took his life and him on the cross, even forgiving those who mock him and make fun of him, and just kind of living out the Lord's Prayer. And so we take time at the end of that talk. We just have about 10 minutes of silence for people to think through what Jesus did. Remember, that's kind of the communion. We break, my body broken for you, my blood shed for you. Do this in remembrance of me, remembering what I did for you so that you can now somehow in that find the strength to go pay that forward, pray that forward to those who have hurt us. And it's hard and it's backwards, and it seems like they should be forgiving, come to me and say, I'm sorry. Why do I forgive somebody who's not repentant or, making the first step. And I hear that often. And I think the reason is because Jesus wants to set you free. When we learn how to forgive, we remove a burden off our own back. Even if the other person, the person who had the offense against you, doesn't acknowledge it, accept it, whatever it may be, you get set free. You're healed in that process. You can receive the grace that Jesus is offering you. It's his gift, a free gift to you. But if you're holding on to your own pain, you're robbing yourself of that free gift. And so I've heard from a lot of people over the last few weeks when Erica Kirk says, I forgive him. And it was such a powerful moment, regardless if you're Republican, Democrat, regardless of, everything else. It was just a moment of her being set free from, and she's still dealing with the pain of loss and all this, that goes with this terrible situation. But she was saying, I forgive you to this shooter because that's what Jesus would do. Not because she wanted to, but because that's what Jesus would do, and that's what Jesus has taught me to do, and that's what Jesus modeled for me. And interestingly, this morning, I was just looked at the news on the way over here, and Tim Allen, the old home improvement, guy, he's on there, and he has forgiven the guy that murdered his father. And he did it because he was so touched by what Erica Kirk did, but it also made him take a look. Is that really what Jesus wants us to do? And so I do think we're living in this day right now where it's okay to talk about Jesus. J.D. Vance, our vice president, said, I've talked more about Jesus in the last 2 weeks than I had my entire career, not because I believe him more, but just because I didn't know it was okay to do so. And so we do live in an interesting day and an interesting time, but we've had modeled right in front of us a pretty prolific picture of asking, of offering forgiveness and seeing somebody be set free from a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And that's what Jesus wants for us. Forgive us as we forgive. That's the other thing that jumps out at a lot of people is, man, I didn't even know I was saying that, for all those years that I would just kind of do the Lord's Prayer like the Pledge of Allegiance, and forgive us as we forgive others and lead us not. I had no idea that I was putting this, almost this condition on my prayer life. Yes, Jesus, I want you to forgive me as I wait, but not to the point that I'm willing to forgive. I didn't even know. Why did he even put that in there? Why is that? I thought it was grace. I thought he already did forgive me, and now you're telling me he's only going to forgive me if I can. And the beautiful truth is he has forgiven you. He's forgiven me. It is finished, stamped, and done, completed with Jesus and his death and resurrection. But you yourself are robbing yourself of his grace when you carry a burden and you're not willing to let it go and learn how to forgive others, as painful as it may be. He wants to set you free from that so that you can fully receive the grace that he offers you. So it's been such a powerful part, and it's been fleshed out in such a powerful way, right in front of us. And I'm seeing that ripple effect to other people who are just going, wow, there really is peace. There really is healing when we learn how to pray that forward.
Yep. And if you're a professional, an executive, if you're whatever industry you're in reading this, if you're a stay-at-home dad or stay-at-home mom, it's interesting to ask that question related. Is there some forgiveness that not only would help me personally get free of some pain, so, sort of a bitterness rudder that's taken root in me and is regularly steering me the wrong way in some ways, and certainly causing me pain much more than the other side. But, forgiveness can also help in the workplace. It can help in family dynamics. It's not just that God asks us to do it, but that's what he designed in order for people that are imperfect versions of ourselves, trying to become better versions of ourselves. When we work together, we've got to have some sort of a strategy for getting the best out of each other as teams, whether at work or family units or whatever it is. Whether it's the dyad of a marriage relationship, a triad of the parents with an adult child or a young child, or twos, threes, foursomes in units at work, whatever it is. I'm working with an agency right now who asked for our help. And, I was presenting to the board of this agency about some work we're going to do with the staff. And it really feels weird to put in a slide deck the work that needs to be done with the staff. And you see performance planning, job descriptions, and things that sound very professional. And then we put in there, forgiveness, contrition. But if this team can go about these things that are highly spiritual, and it's also how God designed us to operate better, this team and this agency is going to be way more effective in their mission, which is a very faith-based mission. So,
can I say one other? Just because at this past weekend, after that quiet time, and I had a guy come up to me, and because one of the things I mentioned at the end, sometimes the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. Because we've all done stuff we're not proud of. And one of the themes Jesus is given right before he gives us this prayer is, who are you in secret? And so I kind of put that out there. Who are you in secret? And when for him, this particular guy, he couldn't get past that. It wasn't even somebody who had done some great sin against him that he needed to forgive. He was just convicted by who he is in secret. And he wasn't happy with it. He wasn't proud of it. And it wouldn't leave me. He just said it wouldn't leave me alone. And I had to forgive. I had to try to start learning how to forgive myself for stuff I've done and realize, back to the very beginning of the prayer, Our Father, our power, that I'm a child of God. I'm God's boy. And this particular person, because of the stuff in his own life, his learnings, trying to take that first step of forgiving himself, would allow him to start jogging to God, as we say, galloping.
Right.
Running, seeing his, the prodigal comes to his senses, and he turns and heads for home. And the father's looking out the window every day, maybe today. And then when he does see him, it's today. This is the day. Here he comes. Before he can get his speech out, the father's tackling him and throwing that hug on him. And it's interesting how that's the beginning of the prayer, Our Father, or at forgive us as we forgive. And this guy realizes the reason I can't gallop, and I use gallop because my granddaughter gallops to see me. She doesn't run. She loves horses. And God gave me a picture of my granddaughter galloping to me, and I run to her and I get this hug, and that's our relationship with God. But I can't, our power, believing that I'm God's boy, I realized in the forgive us as we forgive, the reason I hear you say that, but I can't do it because I haven't learned how to forgive myself. So it's pretty profound, powerful time, how all of this kind of links together. But he has to learn to forgive himself as Jesus has forgiven him, so that he can see his Abba running to him. It was pretty amazing.
So if you're driving along listening to us, or if you're watching us online, whether in a clip or the full podcast, this got a little deeper today, right? Talking about forgiveness. And, like I said at the start, we don't really wade into politics too much. But in the times I've met J.D. Vance and got to pray with him once, his faith is solid, but it's always tough when faith and politics meet. But due to current events, it seems more natural to talk about our faith. And, the super geniuses like the guys at Cincinnati Podcast Studio and all the people that coach you tell us not to mention dates or anything too specific on podcasts because it dates the podcast. But today was the day that Tim Allen, said, inspired by Erica Kirk forgiving her husband's killer, that he felt moved to forgive the guy who killed his dad. And he's been carrying that. I met Tim once, twice actually. Debbie Dunning, the Tool Time girl, went to Burroughs High School, and it was a great young life kid and a delightful woman.
Right there.
And then I got to meet him a little later at the premiere of Ants, which was a Disney movie way back when, his kids and my kids. So when I read that and heard about that and that he said that and it's published, it got me in a personal way because I've met the guy. And he's a celebrity, but he's a human being who's been carrying that stuff around. And Chuck's prompt today is a good one. Maybe a little deeper than just some notes from the podcast is, are you carrying something around? Is there forgiveness that you can extend? And the person who may benefit the most is you and me. And then there's others that can be inspired by that. And that can be not only a better version of ourselves for us, but for our family, for our team, for our business unit, whatever it might be. So went a couple minutes long today. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody, and we'll see you next time.